Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public forum being held in the Council chambers for this Monday, the 8th of August for 2022. This public forum is being audio recorded for administrative purposes. By speaking at the public forum, you agree to being recorded. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this public forum, that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. AlburyCity accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this public forum. Item 2, conflict of interest declarations received by the Chair. I have none. Mr. CEO?
None received, Mayor King.
Thank you. Item 3, to our speakers. 3.1 is Mr. Peter Elias from the Rotary Club of Albury speaking about item 13.3, the draft Eastern Hill Activation Master Plan, speaking in support of Council's preferred recommendation. If you're happy to make your way up to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kylie, Deputy Mayor Steve, CEO Frank, and all councillors. My name is Peter Elias. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the Rotary Club of Albury in support of the Eastern Hill Master Plan. Our Rotary Club has had a long association with Eastern Hill. Back in the mid-70s, there was a club project to actually invigorate the lookout by installing public toilets, a barbecue, and a plaque pointing out the different surroundings. Unfortunately, that's nearly 50 years ago now, and over time, some of those things deteriorate. And the other thing that happens is sometimes when you put in public toilets, they're not up to current standards. So we've had a couple of meetings with council staff in regards to the Eastern Hill Lookout, and some of our members tabled suggestions of things that could be done up on the site. And we were actually enormously impressed by what the architects have come back with. From the community feedback and particularly a lot of the input from our club, some of the ideas have taken from just a small little idea to being a great concept. The final draft, what they've come up with, we're just amazed. The viewing platform that's proposed at the top of the lookout for all access, wheelchair access and everything like that. The covers, the barbecue, and then the pathway down to the trig point, acknowledging that the trig point has got 360-degree views over Albury and all around. I suppose that's something that people don't access a lot now. It's quite a rugged bit of a track to get there. And if anyone does go up there, they probably just go to the car park and then that's the end of it. But by what the project's setting out is just bringing that whole hill alive. But not only that, I mean, I suppose we originally thought it was only the lookout at the top of the hill. But when you look at the plan, it's a whole 77 hectares, all the way from hilltop accommodation right down to Mungab and down to Doctor's Point. Like improving all those tracks, the water tank murals, all those things. I think the architects and designers should be congratulated on what they've put together to connect that whole area. It's going to improve traffic in East Street with the roundabout at Walsh Street. And we've just been overly impressed with what's been proposed for that hill. Now, obviously, the master plan incorporates an enormous amount of different things: walking, riding, sightseeing, bush, naturalists and things like that. We applaud them for incorporating all those things into the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elias. Does anyone have a question? No? Thank you very much.
No worries.
Appreciate your feedback. Our next speaker, 3.2, Mr. Cameron Shippard It is also in relation to 13.3, the draft Eastern Hill Activation Master Plan, but is speaking, does not support Council's preferred recommendation. Mr. Shippard, welcome to the podium. No? Oh, we'll just one moment. We'll pause while we just check whether he's just making his way. One moment. He has arrived. We'll just wait for him to settle in. Welcome, Mr. Shippard. I believe you're speaking, you do not support Council's preferred recommendation and you'll be speaking to that effect. So welcome to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today, and apologies as I catch my breath.
Sorry, catch your breath. Catch your breath. Have a moment while we probably do need to get the microphone a little closer to you too when you do catch your breath. So feel free to start from now.
Great, thank you. And unfortunately, I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be today. I only found out about this yesterday, so I've tried to go through the material as quickly as I could. I also haven't had the chance to look at the Code of Meeting and Practice in detail, so please pull me up as you see me go off track if I do. I understand that today you're not necessarily making a decision about the final plan, that it's a decision to put to public display for 28 days. I did, though, notice that the recommendation is that if no public submission is heard, that the plan be taken as final. So I wanted to take the opportunity while I could. From what I can tell, you've been given two options. One is to endorse, to display, and one is to not endorse and to put back for amendments. So I guess if they're the two options that you have, the one that that I'm asking that you consider is the put back for further amendments. What I would say is that I'm not against development. I'm not against many of the things that are in the plan. One of the things that concerns me is the consultation process and whether what you've got reflects what local residents actually feel. So I wanted to share a couple of things. I live in Doctors Point. I've been in Doctors Point for over 10 years. I've been in East Albury for the best part of 30. I've lived all around Eastern Hill. I use Eastern Hill every day. My household does. We use Mungabarina. We use all of the local reserves. So I consider myself to be somebody that's directly impacted by the decision that you make. And the thing about Eastern Hill for my household and for me, the view at the end of that ridge that goes out Kiwa Valley, that's my favourite place in all of Albury. So this decision actually matters to me and impacts me. Despite all of that, despite being a local resident using it each day, I didn't find out about this process until a fellow walker pulled me up on the ridge one day and said, "Do you know about this?" By the time I found out about it, I went to the survey and the survey had closed. So firstly, that makes me think that if that's my experience, there's a lot of other people in the same boat that haven't been heard. I did see on the Albury-Wodonga Mountain Bikes page a post when the survey opened asking all of their members to get in and have their say. So the people that are using that hill each day didn't get consulted necessarily, didn't get asked. People that are adjoining landowners like me, and sure, I don't abut directly, but I'm pretty close and I can see my house on the map. We didn't get the chance necessarily to be engaged. So what I wonder is what you are seeing in that, does it actually reflect the local residents that are directly impacted? So a couple of things that I'd put forward. For the first time in that 30-year period, I walked through the Eastern Hill part that's behind the hospital. Never walked through there in 30 years. What I found, and it's validated in some of the comments that are in the submissions, is there's informal mountain bike paths in there. And you've got a very big space and what I'd call a dead zone. It's not used. And I do think that there's a wonderful opportunity that this plan doesn't consider, as opposed to what has been proposed, which is that whole eastern slope be taken up with mountain bike paths. Two other things quickly, because I'm conscious of my 5 minutes. The only time that I've ever almost injured myself on Eastern Hill was coming down the path onto Gumbower Close. As you might be aware, and you can see in the photos of the plan, there's steps that are made out of sleepers. One of those sleepers had been knocked off. I almost fell down it. I didn't, thankfully. When you look down, what you could see was a skid mark and a bike tread. So what's happened is somebody's come down what is a walking track, noted in the plan to still be a walking track, on their bike, hit that step, knocked it off, and it sat like that for 3-4 months, didn't get fixed. I imagine one of the local residents fixed it because I've never seen somebody go up there and maintain it. The other thing that I wanted to draw your attention to, when this went to council a couple of weeks ago, the description of Devil's Glen that was used was underwhelming. I walked through Devil's Glen, not just the part where the path is, but the part from Doctors Point Reserve up where there's no current path. And the thing is that it's full of native animal tracks. Over my time there, I've had to call wires on a number of times because of injured animals in that section of Devil's Glen. It's a native corridor for the animals that go from Mungabarina over into Doctors Point Reserve. I'm in there trying to help wires. I've had to pick up the dead bodies of the kangaroos in their vehicles to help them, to cart them away. What I'm seeing is the more infrastructure and development you put in there, those animals, they've got nowhere to go, and there's going to be more of that. And the consequence of that comes onto the residents like me that are in there every day in what is one of the most amazing places in Albury. Thank you for my opportunity today.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Councillors, question, Councillor Callaghan. Sorry, Mr. Shipper, you might have a question potentially from Councillor Callaghan. Sorry,
it's not so much a question, but it's more a comment to you, Mr. Shippard, that this is a draft, and so the community does have an opportunity to respond, and your community, being that Doctor's Point and the people that directly back onto that, do have an opportunity to continue to respond and make those further suggestions in writing to the council.
No, thank you, and I understand that. As I said, I saw a recommendation that said if nothing's heard, then it gets accepted. And what I'm suggesting is there's parts like behind the hospital that haven't been explored. There's other considerations, not just the residents, but as I said, native animals, it's not considered here. So that's my suggestion, that further consultation or further amendments could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shippard.
thank you for your time. Thank you. That concludes the public forum. So we now move on to our council meeting, which is being held in the council chambers for Monday, the 8th of August. We might begin with the opening affirmation and acknowledgement of country. We gather to represent the people of Albury who have entrusted us with this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, wisdom and common sense. May our personal values give us honesty and courage to serve our community effectively and with respect for all. Acknowledgement of country. We would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today, and pay our respects to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, culture, tradition and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that contribute to our community. Item 2, recording and webcasting of the meeting. This council meeting is being webcast and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being recorded and webcast. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this council meeting that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. AlburyCity accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. An audio recording will be made for administrative purposes. Item CM3, conflict of interest declarations received by the Chair and disclosure of political donations. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor King. No conflict of interest declarations received for this meeting. Disclosures of political donations under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. The Act under Section 10.4 requires a person submitting a planning application or submissions regarding a planning application to disclose any reportable political donation and or gifts to any local councillor or employee of the council. Reportable political donations include those of or above $1,000. The disclosure statement forms are available on the council's website or from the Customer Service Centre and must be lodged in accordance with the Act. In dealing with development applications, councillors need to take into account specific planning matters contained in the Act. Accordingly, the provisions of Section 4.151 of that Act are set out in the Council Officer's report detailing planning issues to be considered. The Local Government Act 1993, Section 375A requires that a division be called whenever a motion for a planning decision is put at a meeting of the Council. Planning decision means a decision made in the exercise of a function of Council under the Act, including a decision relating to a development application, an environmental planning instrument, a development control plan, or a development contribution plan under the Act, but not including the making of an order under Division 9.3 of Part 9 of that Act. Thank you, Mayor King.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. CM4 apologies. There are none. CM 4.2 attendance by councillors at the meeting by audio visual link. And we do need to acknowledge, we might wait, need a mover and seconder for the recommendation that we have. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd like to move that the council receive, note and accept the attendance by Councillor Cameron and Councillor Edwards via audiovisual link, Zoom, for this meeting. Councillor
Betteridge? No, I think you're on Councillor Cameron's microphone. It just tricked me. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to second that.
Thank you. Happy to put the motion. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM5, mayoral minute. There is no mayoral minute. CM6, action plans. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move the following action plans be received and noted. 1, actions complete for noting only. 2, actions awaiting response from external parties. 3, actions in progress, and 4, long-term issues more than 3 months.
Councillor Betteridge.
Happy to second the motion, Mayor King.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, happy to put the motion?
Thank you, Mayor King.
Thank you. Put the motion, those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item CM7, confirmation of minutes of the previous meetings. CM 7.1, minutes of the council meeting held on Monday, the 11th of July, 2022 at 6 p.m. Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 11th of July, 2022 at 6 p.m. be confirmed.
Councillor Thurley.
Second the motion, Mayor King.
Happy to put the motion, Councillor Betteridge. Thank you. In that case, those for, those against, the motion is carried. Item CM8, reports from community forums. There are none. CM9, notices of motion, notices of rescission. There are none. CM10, presentations and deputations. There are none. CM11, reports, minutes of committees and working parties. CM 11.1, Lauren Jackson Sports Centre Advisory Committee, June meeting minutes. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd like to move that the council receives, notes and accepts the minutes of the Lauren Jackson Sports Centre Advisory Committee meeting held on Wednesday, the 22nd of June, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. Happy to second the motion.
Councillor Bowen, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please, Mayor King. I'd just like to thank the advisory committee for the hard and diligent work they've done to try and secure other premises whilst the award was in there regarding the Lauren Jackson Sports Stadium development of Stage 1. Unfortunately, we weren't unable to receive that funding, but there was a lot of good that came out of that in respect of looking at other alternative areas for the future going forward. So just want to commend that. And also they've resolved the floor. We had some problems with the floor and had it redone, and it's been all fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Does any other councillors wish to make any comments? In that case, you're happy for
That's fine.
us to put the motion,
Yes,
councillors? Happy to put the motion. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you. Item CM12, documents for sealing. There are no documents for sealing. CM13, officers' reports for consideration. CM13.1, development application 10.2022.3916.3.1, medical centre 14 Fairway Gardens, Thurgoona. Any councillors wish to move the motion? Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council receives the contents of this report and B, grants consent to development application 10.2022.3916.3.1 for a medical centre, car parking, tree removal and retaining walls at 14 Fairway Gardens, Thurgoona, subject to the conditions contained in the draft determination included at attachment 5 to this report.
Councillor Betteridge.
Happy to second. Thank you, Mayor King.
Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, the report was quite comprehensive and went through the issues that had been raised by some community members. One of the issues was traffic, but I'm happy with the traffic report in that there will be very little of the traffic attending this centre, which will progress into the smaller streets of that subdivision. It's something that's needed in that area, and I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Any speakers for or against? Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd like to speak for the development. Thurgoona is one of our growth corridors, and I think a medical centre of this nature will be an asset to residents of Thurgoona, but Greater Albury. And hopefully this attracts further allied health professionals, because I don't know if anyone's tried to book a doctor's appointment recently, but you can be waiting some time. So hopefully this is of benefit to not only residents of Thurgoona, but to all of Albury.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Any speakers for or against? Councillor Edwards, speaking for.
Thank you, Mayor King. Yes, I'm speaking for. However, I just wanted to note that in the future, I'd really like to see more consideration given to native plantings. So noting that this development proposes the removal of an area of planted native vegetation. That vegetation was planted by the Development Corp a while back, and it's not native to the area. However, research suggests that all vegetation facilitates the movement of local threatened species, including the squirrel glider. And whilst there is some compensatory planting proposed in the conditions, I'd just like to see that going forward, that we see some more developments that give more value to some of those areas. And we know this is known habitat for the squirrel glider. In fact, we had a submission for this development application that came with the lovely photo of a squirrel glider in a box from a resident just across the road. That submission raised the issue of lighting, and I'm pleased to see that has been addressed in the conditions. So with the conditions that are contained in the draft determination around the lighting going off after hours, and some of that compensatory planting that hopefully facilitates that continued movement around the landscape, and some future food sources for birds and the squirrel gliders, I'm happy to support at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Thurley, do you wish to sum up? In that case, happy to put the motion. This is a division, so we will need a show of hands. Councillors, as we put the motion, those for. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Thurley, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Bowen, Councillor King, Councillor Betteridge, Councillor Glacken, Councillor Baker. Thank you, councillors. The motion is passed. I don't think there's anyone against, so. Item 13.2, water pump station, 5 SKILLINLANE, variable frequency drive contract number 22-0/00960. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that Council accepts the tender from Remtron Automation Proprietary Limited for contract number 22/00960, supply and delivery of 5 variable frequency drives, VFDs, for water pump station 5, SKILLINLANE, Albury, for the lump sum cost of $279,233, including GST.
Councillor Bowen.
Happy to second that motion.
Councillor Thurley, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, this goes back to something that I've had a few words to say about since I first got on council, and I would also like to mention a previous councillor, Councillor Vanderven. This council has been slowly replacing fixed drives with variable speed drives for quite some time, and I did note in the Sustainability Advisory Committee today that these 5 pumps will save something like 190,000 kilowatt hours per annum. And that's a big plus on our climate change and carbon reduction emissions. So it's a great initiative, and I commend the staff for this work.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Speaker 4, Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd also like to speak for this motion. Not only will it help with our carbon footprint, it'll also have a cost saving of around 95,000 per annum. Plus, also great to see that the contractors come in about 90K underneath budget as well too. So is a win all round.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Thurley, do you wish to make any further comments? Happy to put the motion. Those for? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 13.3, Draft Eastern Hill Activation Master Plan. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor King. I would like to move the recommendation with a couple of minor amendments to add to it, if I can get a seconder, please. So I did have some wording, but okay, can I read that far?
Look over your shoulder, maybe.
Hey, I'll look over there. That Council A receives and endorses the draft Eastern Hill Activation Master Plan. B, places the draft Eastern Hill Activation Master Plan on public exhibition for a minimum of 56 days. C, during the exhibition, include a community information session. And D, if no submissions are received through the public exhibition process, then the draft Eastern Hill Activation Master Plan be adopted as the final version.
Councillor Callaghan.
Happy to second the motion, making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Baker, do you wish to open debate?
Thank you,
Or
Mayor
speak to
King.
your motion, sorry. Yeah.
It is important to develop a master plan that sensitively balances future activation while protecting its unique character. And that was in the body of the report, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. And this is also an aspirational master plan for Eastern Hill. So it's not set in concrete as yet, but the designer of the plan and council definitely wants to hear from other people that felt they didn't get an opportunity earlier on or were unaware of the process that actually happened. And the more people we get putting their thoughts in, the better result we will get as a community at the end. And we'd like to bring everyone along with us. I've had much feedback since the media reported on this story last week, and their initial thoughts were they were anxious and worried because, as Cameron said earlier, he loves the place, and lots of people do, and they walk every day and they use it, and they're using it now when it's rough and not that well kept, and they will keep going back there. I think the 56 days gives everyone an opportunity to get together, talk and work through things. and a constructive information session would be amazing and helpful for all involved. And that's all. I'd, recommend that council support these minor changes to the original motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. I'm happy to open to debate. Any speakers for or against? Councillor Edwards, thank you.
Thank you, Making. More than happy to support the extended consultation period and a community information session. I think the draft master plan looks great, but definitely noting some of those issues raised by Mr. Shippard. We need to get it right, so look forward to seeing what the consultation brings out and people's views on the draft. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Callaghan speaking for.
Yes, thank you, Mayor King. I'd like to speak for the Eastern Hill Draft Activation Master Plan. I think that the draft master plan presented by Yonder is respectful to the landscape and enhances the key elevated locations, capturing the beauty of our local surrounds. The master plan provides walking tracks that do not interact with the bike trails, but enhances that water tank precinct with art and optimising the views with seating and directional and interpretive signage that will connect Eastern Hill. And I think they're all positives of the draft. I think it is improving the safety with access in and out of Eastern Hill was a really important part of the plan. The lookout itself and providing equal access past to Trig Point, which has also been noted this evening, are advantages that should be highlighted. This is a parcel of land that should be accessible to all people. It is in Albury's backyard and should be looked after, maintained, revegetated with local occurring species for all people to enjoy safely. The draft master plan encourages our community to be active citizens that can take in all the charm of Eastern Hill, which it displays, such as the snowy mountains, the rolling hills, the clean air, which I get to enjoy out there as well, native animals, which Mr. Shippard noted as well, and also those beautiful views of the meandering Murray River. I hope, in the words of Mr. Peter Elias, that the update, 50 years in the making, brings the hill alive. I'm highly supportive of the motion and the way in which it enhances the surrounds and will allow all of the community to actively engage with the varying spaces on offer. I am happy to support Stuart's suggestion of the 56 days for all people to have their say and a community information session. I hope this supports Mr. Shippard and other residents to share their views.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Any other speakers for or against or questions? Councillor Baker, do you wish to sum up?
No, Mayor King, happy to put the motion.
In that case, happy to put the motion. Those for? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 13.4, Economic Development Strategy Scope and Stakeholder Engagement Plan. Would councillor like to move that at all? Councillor Thurley, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council endorses the Scope and Stakeholder Engagement Plan for the development of the Economic Development Strategy 2023 to 2026.
Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. Happy to second the motion.
Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Very briefly. I mean, it's a very comprehensive report and it does take into account a lot of changes that have occurred throughout the economy and throughout the region. And I think it's a very timely to do this right now. And the plan itself sets out some great goals and great ambition. So I'm very happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Any councillors, any speakers for or against or questions? Councillor Thurley, are you happy for me to put the motion? Put the motion. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you. Item CM 13.5, Aquatics Facility Management Contract Extension. Any councillors wishing to? Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council authorises the CEO to negotiate and finalise a 12-month extension to contract number FIL 17. now I'm struggling to read that one, /01480 under section 3.1, contract variation of the contract management procedure, including enhanced performance indicators and a mechanism for engaging ongoing feedback for users to share their experiences during the contract extension period, subject to the City of Wodonga also committing to a 12-month extension with Aligned Leisure to the provision of management services for the operation of Albury and Wodonga Aquatics Facilities Agreement.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Councillor Betteridge.
Very happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Thurley, do you wish to open debate?
Yes, thank you, Mayor King. This has been a subject of a number of workshops and a lot of discussion. And while there have been and probably still are issues with the management of Aligned Leisure at this stage, the few words in there that we seek enhanced performance indicators, that is, we want improved KPIs. And the other issue is that we provide opportunity for more rapid and direct feedback to council, to council and Aligned Leisure itself. It makes economic sense to do this, and that's the primary reason that I would move this motion. But we did include those clauses requiring greater feedback and better performance by the contractor.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Speaker 4, Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. I will be voting for this motion this evening for Aligned Leisure, and I hope they can deliver on their many promises moving forward. They have much to do in building consumer confidence and building a reputable brand in the region, and I hope this happens with the extension of that contract. Extending the contract will also allow Albury City Council time to work on its aquatic strategy, which is currently under investigation, and also investigate possibilities around an indoor aquatic strategy for Albury moving forward in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Another Speaker 4, Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Noting the comments made by previous speakers for this motion, I would like to add, in addition to one of the justifications being able to support this recommendation tonight, is that we also are trialling an extended period for pool operations, so for the outdoor pool, and that information will also feed into what will become a new contract. And so I think it's important that we allow that process to take place for all the other reasons, for the other changes that are will be coming in the near future. This also means that we can encompass all of that in the future of aquatics facilities and the operation of them within Albury as well as Wodonga. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Another Speaker 4, Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor King. I have been a vocal critic of some of the aspects of Aligned Leisure's tenure, and I'm not entirely over them all, but I think on the balance with, as Councillor Thurley said, with the cost, it's a finite amount. We know what it is, and also to stay in line with Wodonga City, who have agreed to grant Aligned Leisure one more year. I think it's a suitable thing for us to do as well and stay in step with Wodonga. So I'm more than happy to watch the next 2 years of the contract, and hopefully there is some improved performance from where they were lacking last season and some of the seasons before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. No more further debate for or against. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to sum up at all? Happy to put the motion. Those for? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 13.6, the 2022 Local Government of New South Wales Annual Conference Voting Delegates. We could have Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that Council A confirm one of the voting delegates at the 2022 LGNSW Annual Conference on the 23rd to the 25th of October 2022 to be the councillor holding the office of Mayor, and B, seek nominations to fill the three voting delegate positions and decide by show of hands the 3 additional voting delegates from council to attend the 2022 LGNSW Annual Conference on the 23rd to the 25th of October 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Betteridge. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'm happy to second that motion.
Councillor Betteridge, did you wish to speak to it, or is it more procedural?
I believe it's quite procedural, so I'm quite comfortable for us to move forward.
Move forward. I can pick up from there because we do have 3 voting delegate positions. I can inform the council that we do have 3 councillors who have expressed an interest in being voting delegates. So they are Councillor Glacken, Councillor Edwards and Councillor Callaghan. So therefore, I believe we're able to... I'll just seek clarification on how we determine that.
What we might do is just put this motion, and then there's a further motion prepared to endorse the 3 councillors who have expressed an interest.
Terrific. So the first process is to endorse the motion as it has been put. A show of hands on that first part of it. Those for, those against. That motion is now carried. Now a second mover and seconder, do we, for the next?
Yep, so that'll come up on the screen shortly.
Terrific. So just a procedural issue there. We're just waiting for it to come up on our screen with the names of the additional voting delegates. Thank you. Just to seek clarity there, so we will have a new mover and a new seconder for this motion that is before us now. So if someone is happy to move and announce the details, Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd like to move that Council confirms the 3 additional voting delegates for the 2022 LG New South Wales Annual Conference on the 23rd to the 25th of October 2022 to be the councillors Edwards, Glacken and Callaghan.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Betteridge.
Second.
Any comments, questions, or happy to put the motion? Councillor Callaghan.
I look forward to attending and representing Albury. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to learn and to be well informed about what other councils are seeking change in. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Happy to put the motion if everyone wants to indicate. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 13.7, AlburyCity Corporate Risk Plan Annual Review. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd like to move that the council endorses the annual review of the AlburyCity's corporate risk plan.
Councillor Betteridge.
Happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Betteridge. Councillor Bowen, do you wish to speak to it at all?
No, thanks. No, thank you, Mayor King. I'm happy to put the motion.
Happy to put the motion. If there's no questions or comments or speakers for or against, we'll put the motion. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Item CM 13.8, Rural Fire Service Assets. Councillor Thurley.
Why did I choose this one to move? At Council A, writes to the local state member Justin Clancy MP, the Treasurer the Honourable Matt Keane MP, Minister of Emergency Services and Resilience the Honourable Steph Cook MP, and the Minister of Local Government Wendy Tuckerman MP. 1, expressing Council's strong objection to the New South Wales Government's determination that councils control rural fire service RFS firefighting equipment. 2, advising of the impact of the government's position on council finances of this accounting treatment. 3, informing that council will not record RFS assets in council's financial statements. 4, calling on the New South Wales government to take immediate action to permanently clear up inequities and inconsistencies around the accounting treatment of rural fire service assets by acknowledging that rural firefighting equipment is under the control of the RFS. And 5, amending section 119 of the Rural Fires Act 1997 so that the effect is to make it clear that RFS assets are not the property of councils. B, writes to the Shadow Treasurer Daniel Mookie, MLC, the Shadow Minister for Emergency Service Jihad Dib, MP, the Shadow Minister for Local Government Greg Warren, MP, the Green spokesperson for local government Jamie Parker, MP, and the leaders of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers, Animal Justice and One Nation parties, Robert Borsak, MLC, Emma Hurst, MLC, and Mark Latham, MLC. 2, 1, advising members of council's position, including providing copies of correspondence to New South Wales government ministers. And 2, seeking members' commitments to support New South Wales Council's call to amend the Rural Fires Act 1997 as set out in correspondence. C, still goes on, writes to the New South Wales Auditor General advising that notwithstanding any overtures of future qualified audits, it will not record RFS assets in council's financial statements, noting that the state government's own local government accounting code of practice and financial reporting provides for councils to determine whether or not they record the RFS assets as council assets in accordance with Australian accounting standards. D, promotes the message via its digital and social media channels and via its networks. E, reaffirms its complete support of and commitment to local RFS brigades, noting that council's action is entirely directed towards the New South Wales government's nonsensical position that rather than being owned and controlled by local brigades, RFS assets are somehow controlled by councils, which councils consider to be a cynical financial sleight of hand, abdicating the New South Wales government's responsibilities at the cost of local communities. F, affirms its support to local government New South Wales LGNSW and requests LGNSW continue advocating on council's behalf regarding the accounting treatment of RFS assets.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to second that motion or speak to that motion? I thought I saw your card up. No. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. I get the easy bit. I'd like to second that motion.
Councillor Thurley, do you have any breath left to speak to the motion?
There's not much left to be said. I mean, there's some of the words in there, nonsensical, cynical, they all are so true. This is another example of cost shifting to local government. We have no say in what they buy. We have no say in the maintenance. We have no say in the deployment, and we have no say in how the assets are disposed of. So why should we record depreciation in our books? It's just way over the top, completely silly. And the motion says that much more clearly than I can say it. If Fire and Resources and Fire and Rescue New South Wales and the SES, they're not treated this way. They are vested along with the organisation that purchases, use, etc. So this is just nonsensical, inconsistent, a crazy thing. So I'm glad that we are speaking very strongly about this one.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Any other speakers for or against? Happy to put the motion? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bowen, you must have jumped in there.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Thurley has said, being an RFS member myself as well too. Once again, it is something that we don't have a say on from a council point of view as well too. So it's a very, it's pretty thorough, and it's great to see this hopefully going through to the LGNSW.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Any other questions or comments? Speakers for or against? Happy to put the motion, Councillor Thurley. Those for? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Councillors. Item CM 14.1, Officers' Report for Noting 2 Cities, 1 Community Action Plan Updates. from the 1st of January to the 30th of June 2022. Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that council receives and notes the 2 Cities, 1 Community Action Plan progress reports from 1st of January to 30th of June 2022 update.
Councillor Callaghan.
Happy to move happy to second the motion. Thank you, Mayor King.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Betteridge, do you wish to speak to it?
No, I shall decline. Thank you.
Yeah, any speakers for or against? In that case, happy to put the motion. Those for? Those against? That motion is carried. CM 14.2 Regional Curbside Collection Services Contract Update. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council receives and notes the update on the regional curbside collection service contract.
Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. Happy to second the motion.
Councillor Thurley, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, I think this is a great initiative. I mean, AlburyCity has been a leader in this space for quite some time now, and to have these other councils come on board will make it a much more efficient and better process. It helps some of the smaller councils who don't necessarily have the resources to go by themselves. We were given a brilliant briefing just a short while ago about the negotiation and the way this work is moving, and I'm very pleased to see that we're going along really well.
Thank you, Councillor Thurley. Any speakers for or against or questions? Happy to put the motion, Councillor Thurley. Those for? Those against? The motion is carried. Item CM 14.3 Carbon Emission Progress Report. Any councillors wish? Councillor Betteridge.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor King, I'd like to move that council notes A, the 7.6% reduction in carbon emissions between 2018, 2019 and 2020-21. B, the completed and upcoming projects aimed at reducing carbon emissions. And C, that the existing carbon emissions targets will be reviewed in consultation with the Sustainability Advisory Committee by July 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Betteridge. Councillor Edwards is a seconder, is that right? I'm just not seeing.
Yep, happy to second, Mayor King.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Betteridge, did you wish to open debate or speak to the motion?
Just quickly, thank you. 7.6% reduction in carbon emissions is a good way to start and continue the works that we have implemented. And the awarding of the contract earlier this evening is another step forward. We are going to achieve the reductions that we require to leave this earth in a healthy place for our children and our grandchildren. We just have to approach it pragmatically and step by step. And I believe as an organisation we are. And I applaud everyone's efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betteridge. Any other speakers for or against, or a question? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor King, and through you to the most relevant member of staff. I just had a question around the small market energy contract. I note that the report says that council is looking into the opportunity to select green energy for that small market contract. And that means that any of that power purchased through that contract will come from renewable sources. Noting that hopefully the power purchase agreement will take a big chunk out of that 40% reduction by 2022 target, there's still the opportunity there for the small market energy contract to make a difference as well. And that's not dependent on the PPA. Just wondering, do we have an indication of the timing on when this information might be received?
Mr. Millett? I believe it's on.
It's already on. Yeah, sorry, it's just no one else has had a question tonight, so it wasn't sure.
Lucky you.
So thank you. Thank you through you, Mayor King. Look, at this stage, no, I don't have a timing on that. We're certainly working with the LG New South Wales on that opportunity, and we'll come back to council, obviously, with any costs implications that are associated with any change in that small market contract.
A follow-up, Councillor Edwards? Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah, just noting that to date and the information out there so far seems to indicate that a shift to clean energy usually means a reduction in costs. So I really look forward to seeing what the updated information is in regards to the PPA, and then also the option of changing to a green energy option through the small market energy contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Any other questions or speakers for or against? In that case, Councillor Betteridge, do you wish to close debate?
No, thank you. I'm happy for the motion to be put.
Thank you. In that case, we'll put the motion. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item CM 14.4, councillor conference attendance from the 1st of January to the 30th of June 2022. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. I'd like to move that the council receives and notes the report on councillor attendance at conferences for the period 1 January 2022 to the 30th of June 2022.
Thank you. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor King. Happy to second the motion.
Councillor Bowen, do you wish to speak to the motion at all?
No, thank you, Mayor King.
Any speakers for or against? I think Councillor Betteridge just still got it on from before. No, that's fine. In that case, happy to put the motion. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 14.5, investment balances, June 2022. Councillor Thurley.
Thank you, Mayor King. I move that council receives and notes the investment balances report for the month of June 2022.
Councillor Betteridge.
Happy to second that motion, Mayor King.
Thank you. Councillor Thurley, do you wish to make a comment? Happy to put the motion. In that case, we'll put the motion. Those for, those against, the motion is carried. Thank you. Item CM 15, delegates reports for noting. There are none. CM 16, notice of urgent business. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor King. I wish to address my fellow councillors and thank the community for putting me forward as the Bonza local legend. As you would be aware, I'm extremely passionate about our region and always welcome the opportunity to promote tourism opportunities for the amazing region of Albury-Wodonga. I was honoured to be chosen to represent our region, and as a part of this recognition, requested that the complimentary flights that were part of being the local legend be gifted directly to a local charity. Since the announcement, I have sought to understand whether my involvement with Bonza may present a perceived conflict of interest. As a result, I've made the decision to not proceed as the Bonza local legend. My priority, however, remains being able to continue to promote this outstanding region to the rest of the world, to serve as an active member of our wonderful community, and to represent you as a councillor and current deputy mayor. I wish to thank the community and my fellow councillors for their support.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Yeah. Any comments, questions or anything else, councillors? CM 17, confidential matters. There are none. I declare the meeting closed at 6:58 p.m.